Earl, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful morning, no complaints. So I'm excited to talk to you. We're going to dive into some things that we have never really talked about on this podcast, and it's something that you spend a lot of time working with people on. So I'm excited to dive into all of that. But first and foremost, who are you?
Yeah, my name is Earl Kapule, and I am a mindset coach. I have been in the solar sales industry for the last 8 years, but in the last 3 years, I've been more of a mindset coach to people.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, when One thing that's really fascinates me with how you go about some of this and how you go about helping people meet their goals is the like getting into the theta state of brainwaves. And I think before we dive into that, for people who aren't familiar with that term, I would love for you to just kind of explain what that actually is.
Yeah, so the theta brainwave state is a state that we go through a couple times throughout our day, but essentially it's a state of hypnosis. So a lot of hypnotists use this. They put people into a theta brainwave state so that their brains, their minds are more malleable. So you can suggest things to them and they're more likely to believe it because it's going directly into the subconscious. And so essentially, I picture it as when you're in theta brainwave state, you have a doorway between the subconscious and the conscious, and that doorway is wide open. So if you want to bring in new beliefs and new habits and new perspectives about things, it's going to be when you're in theta state because that door is wide open and you can bring it right into the subconscious. Otherwise, that door is closed most of the day. So when you try to put something new in there, all these doubts, all these fears, and all these things happen and makes you feel like you can't change. So a lot of people they're like, oh, I can't change. That's just how I am. They're not in theta state. At theta state, you start to daydream and you start to have visions and there's no limits when you're daydreaming. And so that's what theta state is. From the ages of 0 to 7, we are in theta state. And so children are naturally in theta state, running around, playing, pretending, and doing all those things. They're in theta state nonstop. And that's why we say children are like sponges, because everything in those 7 years, they're putting right into their subconscious. And as they grow up, they wonder why they have all these habits and these things are like, these things are messing me up. Why am I like this? It's during those 7 years. And so as adults, we need to learn how to take advantage of that.
Okay, very cool. And I like how you kind of termed it theta state versus like hypnosis, just because I think there's can be a very negative connotation around hypnosis, or there's all these like just it's the stuff that you do at the shows and all of that,
For
and we
sure.
don't really truly
For sure.
understand like the process behind that. So I love that you term it theta state versus hypnosis, since that truly is what it is.
Yeah.
So when you're like, how do we go about, let's just jump into it. How do we go about getting into that theta state so we can actually get things into our subconscious?
For sure. So there's a few different ways. The first way that I share with everyone I coach is that like the first 10 minutes when you wake up and the last 10 minutes before you fall asleep, you're naturally in theta. So as you're waking up, you're in theta, but not for long. So, you feel a little groggy, you feel like you're like half awake, half asleep. That's theta state. So take advantage of the first and last 10 minutes of your day. You're always going to be in theta. And so as I'm waking up, I'm already doing my affirmations. And as I'm falling asleep, doing the affirmations. Um, and then the second time that you're naturally in theta state is when you're doing things that you habitually do. So it could be cleaning, it could be taking a shower, it could be, my favorite is you're driving on the freeway, or if you're just driving somewhere, you always take the same exact route and you go for half a mile or a mile and you forgot that you've gone that far. You're like, oh man, I'm almost home already. You were in theta state. So that's why I tell people, put on some positive messages or things that you're trying to believe about certain things or yourself. Put it on and just drive, and it's going to go right in there. You don't have to memorize the whole podcast and take notes. You can just put it right into your subconscious. That's the second time. So there's this natural times throughout your day. And then the third one, it's not as common. It's a little bit more difficult to do, but we can practice specific meditations that help us get into that state. So Dr. Joe Dispenza has meditations like that, but you could just YouTube theta state meditations. But those are the three main ways I suggest people to get into theta.
Okay. When we're talking as far as in the morning, are we talking like before you even get out of bed? Because once you're kind of out of bed, drinking water, going to the bathroom, doing that sort of thing, you kind of get
Yeah.
yourself out of it.
Yeah. We're talking like you're in bed, your eyes are barely opening, right? Start then. So I got a cool tip from someone I spoke with recently. They said when you hit snooze on your phone, it gives you like 8 or 9 minutes before it goes again. And so he'll hit the snooze and then do his affirmations or whatever he's going to do until that goes off. And so that's
Okay.
about the right time. So if you want to do it that way, you can do that as well. Yeah.
Okay. I like that idea. I'm not a snooze person though, so I may have set my alarm like 8 minutes earlier than
Yeah.
normal.
Right.
That's funny. Okay, and then kind of the same thing, like when you go to sleep, like once you shut your light off, kind of
Just yeah.
as you're drifting off.
Mhm. And
Okay.
sometimes I'll play stuff. If I don't feel like I can do it energetically at the end of the day, I'll just put something in my earbud, and I'll just play it and fall asleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever, I'm curious because this was suggested to me one time and I did it for a while and then got out of it. For no other reason, I started listening to something different. But have you ever like recorded your own affirmations and then listened to those?
I remember I recorded my affirmations once, but I never used them. But I would like to try it. I feel like that would be a good thing because when you're awake and you're doing your affirmations, it works and it's powerful. So I can only imagine when you're sleeping, as you fall asleep, and as you're waking up, it can be beneficial for sure.
Now, if you are listening to something, um, whether it's just something positive or trying to get yourself in or, for that state, um, do you suggest like finding things that actually have like that theta state wave music? Or because I know they make different like alpha wave music and theta and things like that, or is that not really necessary?
I mean, I haven't tried it myself, but I have heard good things about
Mhm.
binaural beats, and all these different sounds and frequencies because the frequencies affect our energy, affect our body, our molecules, and all that. So a lot of people are using sound more for recovery. So like for athletes, you can use it for recovery. You play specific sounds, it'll help your body, your muscles relax and feel better. So I think it can be good. I haven't tried it for theta state, but I believe there are specific sounds that makes it easier. So for me, I sometimes listen to like water drums. So there's a song on YouTube that's water drums, and that helps me a lot to get into a meditative state. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different types of sounds you can use.
Mhm. I was just wondering, because I've used, or I was curious because I've used binaural beats for a number of things, and there's an app I use that's really cool, but I use it for sleep as well. But I find if I use it, they actually have like a deep work focus one, and when I use that, I can crank out content like no other when I'm listening to that. Whereas other times I'm like twiddling my thumbs for an hour as I'm trying to think of ideas.
Yeah. No, for sure. So I went to a school in Northern California in 2011. For 4 months, I lived on campus. And one of the things they were teaching was music and depression and anxiety. So we had people that had depression and anxiety come, and we would play specific music to them, and they would feel better when they hear some songs, and then other songs didn't really do anything for them. So yeah, I mean, it could be super powerful.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, okay, so I know like we've talked you and I off recording have talked about visualization and how helpful that can be. Is that something that we could we is ideal to kind of pair with a theta state, or is that something that we can do regardless of when it is that our brain just kind of like processes that visualization as like actually happening?
Yeah. So I believe that visualization you can do any time of the day. And yes, the mind doesn't know the difference between what you're imagining and what's actually happening. And so that's the power in it. Um, One of the first stories I heard about it was about the 4 Minute Mile guy, Roger Bannister, right? When he was asked, how did you do this? How did you break the record. It was almost impossible. People said you could get hurt and almost die, and you did it. And he said, well, every day on the track, as I'm running, I was visualizing myself crossing the finish line and the clock saying 3:59. And he said, that's all I did. I trained and I visualized that every time I trained. So it's like he did it in his mind before he was able to do it in real life. And a lot of people have used this over time. They just see it so much in their head every day. Repetition is key. So Theta is one way to learn. But in the meantime, repetition is the main way to learn. So it's a lot of people are just using repetition over and over again, but Theta is going to just give you a boost. And so visualizing something over and over again, eventually the mind's like, okay, this is your reality now. And so now it has no choice but to show you all the opportunities that kind of line up with that vision and allows you to make that vision a reality. So in our brains, we have something called a RAS, or the reticulating activating system. And basically, when you visualize things, you're telling the mind, find everything I need to create this reality, because this is my reality and I need it to be it. I believe it's here already. And so now you're going out there and you see the red car everywhere, or you see your dream car showing up, and so little by little, you're starting to manifest these things because you've already lived it. It already exists. And so now it's just time to manifest it.
Okay, that makes sense. How does gratitude and like doing gratitude and a couple times a day or once a day or that sort of thing, like how does that play into all this? Because I've heard and I've experienced it myself, but that there's a lot of like you just by doing daily gratitude, like you can get some good results. So how does that like help change things in our lives?
Yeah. So I've been studying and practicing gratitude for the last 3 years. And before that, I didn't have a daily gratitude practice. But ever since having a daily gratitude practice, it's changed several things for me. So number one, my mood and my emotional state has been more stable, more consistent. And so there is something called an emotional frequency scale, where this shows where all the emotions are. All of the emotions give off different frequencies. And so it made sense because, a lot of times people say, oh, you're not feeling good. Yeah, I'm feeling a little down. There's like a lower frequency. But when we're really happy, we feel high. And so it's a higher frequency. And so gratitude, if you're not feeling very well, you're very anxious, you're stressed or whatever for something coming up and you're just stressed out, then you need to start thinking generally about what you're grateful for in your life. And little by little, you start moving up the scale. And eventually, next thing you know, you're at the top of the scale in a state of gratitude, which is essentially a state of abundance. And our hearts, it gives off like a magnetic frequency, but that's based on how we feel. So the happier we feel, the bigger that magnetic energy field. And that's why you notice the people that do better in life, or that looks like they're doing better, they're happier more consistently, right? That's the biggest thing that they're doing differently, is that their energy and their mood is better than the other people. And so gratitude can help literally anyone just change their mood, and the mood changes everything else. I always say that thoughts create emotions, emotions create actions, and then all those three create your reality. But it starts with the type of thoughts you're having every day. And so it's really about just reprogramming the mind from looking at things they hate to things that they love and are happy about every day, which lead to better actions.
Because diving into kind of that energy that you were talked about in those frequencies, if I understand it right, like we attract the frequencies like that are similar to where we're at. So it's like if we have a really low frequency, like our life's going to continue to suck.
Yeah. I think there's a quote that says, match the frequency of the reality that you want, and you cannot help but get it. Everything is energy. And so, yeah, when you think about that life you want, you just think about how would you be feeling if you already had that life? Then you feel that feeling and just hold it as long as you can. And little by little, things are going to start showing up for you to take action. It's not like you don't do anything, but it's just that's where your eyes are locked now. It's locked on the things that match that frequency.
Hmm. And I think, at least from my experience with that, it's like once that like you can do the same actions, but once that energy changes, like the results or those outcomes change. Like that's what I've experienced in my life.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like one day you did it, the next day you did it, but both days got different results simply because of how you felt when you're doing it. So I always tell people, like, when you take action from alignment, everything aligns for you. But if you're taking action and you're not aligned and you just feel off balance, then you're not going to get the same result. And so, but part of having that alignment is making sure you're aligned with what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. A lot of people are out here doing things they don't truly love, or they're looking at it from a way of like, oh, I have to do this versus I get to do this. So, and with athletes, the same. Kobe Bryant worked as hard as he did because he loved it, not because he wanted to win or do all those things. He actually loved playing the game. So I think it's the same thing with anything. You have to love what you do in order to get the maximum result from it.
Is that one of the reasons, like some people just like, is the alignment factor one of the reasons some people don't really meet their goals? Like they have this goal, but like in their heads, like it's kind of like, oh, someone gave them this goal. They didn't really like think of it
Right.
themselves type thing, and they don't truly accept it.
For sure, for sure. So a lot of people are still living based off of old programs and old ways of society, a lot of traditions, going the traditional path. And they don't stop and ask themselves, is this actually what I want to do? They just think, okay, this one makes me a lot of money. I'm pretty good at this. I might as well just do it, but deep down there's something else. But in their mind, they're like, oh, but how am I going to make money doing that? Or how am I going to make a living doing that? Right. It always comes to money and providing and paying bills. And I've gone through this, and I've come to this place where it's like, okay, but this makes me happy. Yes, this makes me more money, but this makes me happier. But I'm finding the things that make you happiest make you more money than you need. Like whatever it is that makes you truly happy, it's going to make you more than enough money that you need to live the lifestyle you want to live. But I think that's the hard part for a lot of people. They're like, I don't think that's possible. It's like people are making money playing video games. Like, there's so many different things out there. That's not a bad thing, but I'm just saying people are doing literally all types of things, making money, and they're happy. And you're out here at a job you hate, But yeah, so getting into alignment means finding that thing that you look at, is like, even if I didn't get paid, I would still do it. Right. Like I would do that for free. And so that's how I feel about coaching. It's like, I love doing it. But you have to truly love it and not be concerned about how much money you make from it.
Mm-hmm. And I think the fun, like enjoyment is a huge factor of it, especially I feel a lot of times with, especially like athletes who are competitive, like it gets to a point of like, they stop having fun and it's just like, I have to train, I have to do this, I have to do this. And like there's all these steps, which is important, but I think they're not always, but there sometimes gets to a point of just like forgetting all of that and just like have fun with what you're doing.
Yeah. I remember I saw a podcast, I think it was just on Joe Rogan's show, and this guy was talking about how he said, do you know why the Russians always win championships, or they win so many championships versus the Americans? He was saying, because in Russia, when they train, they're just having fun. They're just rolling around with each other and they just have fun. Whereas the Americans, they push really hard. They go so hard to the point where sometimes they get injured and that pushes them back a week or two, or whatever. But every practice, they're exhausted at the end. They think the goal is to be exhausted at the end of the practice. Whereas the Russians, they're just doing it for fun. That's their culture, that's their lifestyle, and they love it, So I think that's the difference. It's like, are you doing it because you love it, or now are you doing it to win? Only, but it's funny, if you just have fun and the winning comes, you don't have to try to win. You're just like, this is fun. But yeah.
And I think there's a time and place for both. Like ramping up to, at least for me personally, like ramping up to a big competition or something like that. Like I'm focus training based on that competition, but then it's like coming off of that, like I just need a few weeks just to train, like not think about what I'm doing, just go in, like work out, have fun. And so I think there's a time and place for like that hard work put in, like grind, but at the same time, like you can't forget that fun factor.
Yeah, and I think so. I think there needs to be a balance between masculine and feminine energy in everything we do, and so I think a lot of times it's just off balance one way or the other. You know, either it's too much feminine or too much masculine. But depending on what you're doing, there should be the right balance to where there's time to push, but then there's also time to listen to my body.
Mhm.
As you know, but yeah,
Uh, on that note, I'm curious now with the masculine and feminine energy, do you notice certain, like, if someone's dominant masculine versus feminine or vice versa, like, do certain types of people have, like, I don't want to say more success, but like, does it change the outcome of things?
yeah. So the way I've seen it, at least in the solar sales industry, the guys that have a lot of masculinity, not very much femininity, have a lot of outside success. So they make a lot of sales, making a lot of money. Um, but I think on the relationship side is not as successful just because work is everything, money is everything to them. So when you have the over emasculated side, you can have success, but then in some areas, and then in some areas you don't. And so that's where a definition of success comes in. It's like, well, it depends what success is. If
Mhm.
you want work to be your whole life, and you know it's hard to have any relationships, but you're making a lot of money and you're moving your way up, great, you're successful. You know, but if your family is falling apart because of it, then I don't know if that's can be defined as successful, right? And then the other side of the spectrum, people that don't, I've noticed a lot of men that I work with don't have that masculinity. So they don't come from sports, they don't come from competitions. They had a lot of trauma, and it's harder for them to be direct with customers and to show them that their time is important. So they don't make a lot of sales because they have those blocks, and so I got to bring them back this way on the scale, while the others I got to bring dial down a little bit. But they've mastered the masculine side, and the others, they're really good at the feminine side, so they have a lot of empathy for customers, but they don't have that side that they need to close the deal. So they get customers to like them, but not to trust them, because they don't feel like that person has enough confidence in themselves to get the deal going. So yeah, it's a tricky thing for everybody.
Are those patterns, you mentioned the 0 to 7 is kind of when we're formed. Are those patterns something that's formed at those early ages, or is that something that's a little bit learned more like through high school, college years?
I believe a little bit of both, but for sure the first seven. So like for me, I'm a little bit more on the feminine side, and you know, my father was super abusive towards my family, and I spent a lot of time with my sister. And then even through high school, she actually started raising me from high school on. And then always had a lot of friends that were girls that I just talk with. And so for me, that's how I got more on the feminine side, you know. Um, but yeah, definitely the first 7 years, the parents are making that impact, and this not deciding, but the child is deciding which is better, which one should I be, you know. And so a lot of times, if the father is super abusive, then it's easier to lean towards femininity, or if the mother is abusive, then it's easier to lean more to masculine.
Okay. It'd also be interesting to see like if there's any studies out there as far as like girls who have older siblings that are like just brothers, or like in reverse of that, to see if there's any patterns that happen there.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, the only girl would be like a tomboy, you know, and it's a little bit more masculine. So I think I'm pretty sure we're gonna find that.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. I do want to talk a little bit about goals, because I know like a lot of times we're kind of, a lot of people just kind of have these very vague goals of like, I like want to make money, or I want to like win this race, or whatever, but we don't really get, but I think a lot of times we set these goals that might not be attainable or achievable, but we just kind of like hope they happen. So and I love the perspective you put on like how to set goals properly, so I would love for you to dive into that.
Yeah, for sure. So I, like you said, I found that a lot of goal setting trainings, or the way people do it, is very generalized and not as effective. And so I tried the regular method, the SMART goals, and you make your goals, and I could never seem to hit it. And so there came a day where I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. Why am I not consistently hitting my goals? And so I found that one of the things that helped me is making the goal very adjustable. It's not concrete. A lot of people, they'll set their goal and they're like, okay, I can't change it. So it's like in the beginning of the year, like, here's my goal for the year. And then they keep it the same. They never go back to it. They never change it. And then they eventually quit by the third month. So for me, if I wanted to make something like 100 sales in a year, I would break it down to how much I need per month and then how much I need to make per week, all the way down to the point of how many conversations do I need to have per day. So I break it down to daily actions. That way I'm not focusing on this huge, big goal. I'm just looking at what do I need to do on a daily basis that will allow me to hit my weekly goal, and then my weekly goal that will allow me to hit my monthly goal. So that way I don't need to think about the whole year. I just need to think about my days and my weeks. And so then I tell people, if you can make sure you set your goal so in a way where when you set it, you write it down, when you look at it in your heart, you feel that's a good goal to set. Not, oh, this is kind of, it's a little bit high, not, you shouldn't be feeling like that. I mean, you can try that, but I feel like most times people don't get it. And you don't waste time, but you end up in this place of like, man, I suck. So I make it low. So like a brand new rep that comes to me, say, hey, I want to sell solar. Cool. Month one, we're going to sell one. And they're going to say, well, this other guy does like 10 or for like 5. Let's do 3. Like, no, let's do 1. If you hit 1 in your first week, great. You hit your goal, but then we don't want to set it higher and then you miss and you don't feel good. A lot of people end up quitting on their goals because they missed it 1 time or 2 times. They're like, oh, this is not for me. Like, no, you're not good at setting goals and you haven't even tried it long enough. So I tell them, look, if you can hit your weekly goal, let's just focus on the weekly goal. If you hit weekly goal 3 or 4 times in a row, then we can bump the goal up. But if not, if you miss that weekly goal 2 weeks in a row, then either we need to adjust the plan. If you feel confident in that adjustment of the plan and you're going to hit it on the 3rd week, great, keep doing it. If not, let's just bring it down. If you can't find an adjustment in the plan, bring the goal down a little bit, hit it. Because what's going to happen is you hit it, you're going to feel confident. Now you're going to be like, okay, now I can hit that next level. But if you're constantly missing your goal, you're not going to feel like you can get to that next level. You keep trapping yourself and getting stuck and feeling bad about not hitting it.
I want to point out something you said there that I think a lot of people, besides just the goal setting factor, a lot of people make the mistake of, as far as you mentioned, like adjusting the plan. Like, I feel like so many times we aren't having the success we want in whatever it is. And it's like, all right, so we're just going to do this again. And then we still don't have a success. So it's like, all right, let's do this plan again. And like, I feel like there's this disconnect sometimes, like, well, why don't we try something different to see if this different action is going to get us to that goal?
Right. Yeah, I see that happen a lot with reps. And I'm like, you can only knock on so many doors in a day. You can only do so many things. So it's not like do more of the same. It's find a more efficient and effective way, and what I found was a lot of times it was changing the plan in a way that makes them feel happy. And when they think about doing the action, they feel good and not, I have to, right? And so sometimes it's just a perspective shift and not so much changing the actions. So I'll just help them change that perspective and they're like, oh, okay, cool. I got it. Now I feel better about it. I'm like, great.
I think that's huge. Like, even whether it's perspective or changing the action, like, because I talked to a lot of people who are like, yeah, I didn't, the therapy, I never did the exercises. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, if something was working, they would have kept doing something. So I usually find out, tell them like, I'm like, you probably would have kept doing it if you felt they were working. Like,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and so I think there is something to that, as far as like, you have to be in agreement with whatever that plan is and be like happy doing it. But it also needs, like, you have to see results for you to actually at least in my opinion, like, to continue doing something. Like, you have to see results, otherwise you're just going to stop doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Same with the morning routines. A lot of times they don't have consistency with it. Immediately I tell them it's because you don't like it. You don't like what you're doing, how you're doing it, and maybe you don't see the purpose of it, like what you can get out of it and how it's going to help you. So let's review that. And it's like a lot of people say, oh, really like exercise. I'm not really a gym person. I'm like, okay, well, what kind of exercise do you like? Right? It's not like that you hate exercise, you hate the type of exercises you've tried so far.
Yeah.
So maybe it's dancing, maybe it's hiking, I don't know. But yeah, people have a very limited belief system around themselves and what they can actually accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I hadn't touched on that you just mentioned again was the morning routines. What I mean, I've had my morning routine. I've changed it a couple times just because as life changes and things change, like you need to adapt. But I've definitely noticed the benefits of it. What is the reason? I guess first off, what are there any things that like absolutely should be included in a morning routine, or is it up to the person? But also, why are morning routines so effective?
Yeah. So I call it the power hour. The first hour every day is going to be the power hour. And essentially, I tell people you're filling up your cup. I don't care how you feel when you wake up. You could feel happy, you could not feel happy. You should still do it, even if you feel happy. A lot of times people feel happy and they're like, I don't need to do it. I feel good already. It's not about feeling good. It's about making sure your cup is full at the beginning of the day, before you leave your house, before you get ready to do whatever it is you're going to do. Because there may be some things that are unexpected that day, but it's not going to affect you if you did your morning routine. And so the way I see it is filling your cup up and then going out there into the world to pour your cup out, because you know how to refill it and other people don't. And so you're going out there to pour and give of yourself so that in return you get a return from that. So you're making investments in others. But essentially there are four things that I always do every morning. And my wife came up with an acronym for it, and it's give. So you give to yourself before you can give to others. And it's gratitude. So at least 5 minutes of gratitude. That is going to raise your vibration. And then introspection is just a time of meditation where I'm just sifting through thoughts that are coming up, just feeling how I feel, and getting into a neutral state. And then visualization. So visualization now, because I'm at a higher vibration, now it's easier to visualize everything on that vibration, that reality, and just visualize the things I'm trying to manifest. Because there's two things you need to manifest exactly what you're trying to manifest. So like Roger Bannister, he had a clear vision of what the clock was going to say when he crossed the finish line. So it's a clear intention, and he had an elevated emotion. So those two things, a clear intention and an elevated emotion paired together, will allow you to manifest whatever it is you're visualizing. But a lot of times people will visualize things and they either have a hard time visualizing it or they have a hard time believing it's true. But they rarely have both. But when you have both, it's much easier to just allow it to arrive and show up into your life. So after that, you've done all the emotional and mental work. The last thing is exercise. So it's mind, body, spirit routine. But the end with exercise, and then I start my day. And I can get that done in 20 minutes, sometimes it's an hour, but it just depends.
I love that. And the acronym makes it super easy to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna have my wife is creating a give journal. So that'll help people just go through those four things every morning.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Earl, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you feel would be really important to bring up?
Um, one thing I can think of is in life, a lot of people, we have a hard time being patient when it comes to getting what we want, the results we want. And so something I talk to people about is called the pace of peace. And so the pace of peace is the fastest pace anyone can go, but it depends on the person. And so I always tell people, when you're in a place of peace, you know that you're going the pace of peace. And that will allow you to get all the results you want, to be effective, efficient. But if you're not at peace, anything you do is going to be ineffective. And so it's just remembering, it's like, okay, I need to get to a place of peace before I do anything I do in my day, because that's going to get me the best results from a sound mind and just being in that state. So yeah, I would just recommend anybody, feeling impatient right now, just remember that, because that is going to get you the best results. It's like the turtle and the hare. The turtle You know, he was cruising along, having fun, while the hare was constantly hustling and grinding and doing anything he could to win. Yet the turtle was the one that won, not just because he finished the line first, but because he was having fun all the way through, you know, just loving the process. And so if you can be the turtle, you're gonna have a lot more fun in life. So like, don't worry about those people. Looks like they got tons of results, you know, you really don't know if they're happy or not. Yes, they maybe have the results. It doesn't mean that they're happier than you because they have more results than you. You could be where you're at and be happier than anyone else. So yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Pace of peace. Super cool. Well, Earl, thank you so much for your time today. Greatly appreciate it. If someone has any questions for you, where can they find you?
Yeah. So on Facebook, it's my name, Earl Kapule. Instagram, it's same thing, or the tag is Mr. _Kapule. And then I also have the gratitude mindset. So on Instagram and Facebook, we have the gratitude mindset. There's even a Facebook group for the gratitude mindset.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been really informative for a lot of people. And selfishly, I absolutely got a lot of that.
Thank you so much.